I'm Tired Grove. This is my wife Tiffany.
Hmm. So the last time also,
Keep it down. We don't want the chickens.
I put them to bed.
Oh, okay, good. I'm sorry, what were you gonna say?
So last time also, you had talked about the flood, a
Again?
worldwide flood,
Yeah.
and I just wanted to put forth the possibility that Noah's flood was actually the Black Sea flood, which occurred by scientific estimates about 5600 BC, maybe 5000. And scientists call that region where the Black Sea is now the possibly the northern cradle of civilization. It used to be the Cimmerian shoreline, uh, which is now what we call the Black Sea shoreline, but they found some city relics, in the Black Sea, especially along the uh, shoreline. And they do say that it was an area along the shoreline. It's called the Paleo shoreline, that was covered rapidly in sand dunes, maybe in 30 years. Another scientist said maybe 1 or 2 years. Other scientists disagree with that. I do think that it could be a possibility, though I hate to, cast aspersions on anyone, but it could be a possibility that they want it to be 30 years just because they don't want people to say, well, see, that's evidence of a biblical flood. I don't know. I mean, you do see that happen sometimes. But irregardless, it was the shoreline was created rapidly, and they think that the Black Sea was kind of a rapid fill sea.
Again,
And the
another
reason
rapid
for
fill.
that is because there's marine sediment on top of the lake bed, and that's what gives rise to the rapid fill notion. And they find the same shells all along the Caucasus margins. And they do also believe that it's possible that the Bosphorus Strait may have broken through at around 5000 BC. So if you think about the Black Sea at that time, bordering that region is the region of the Hittites. And so we do have the possibility of some undiscovered ancient city regions in the Black Sea. And scientists have been trying to excavate and explore in those areas, but like we talked about before, ocean excavation or exploration is really expensive and difficult. So that's what I thought maybe could be the flood that Noah and most of the uh, Mesopotamian Valley mythos could be referring to.
Well, even if that's the case,
Hmm.
we still have all of the ruins that are at the bottom of the Mediterranean Sea, and the indications that at one point that was not a sea, that it was a valley, like we said before.
Hmm.
Then we've got ruins off the coast of Florida, with the Doric columns I always
Hmm.
talk about, just running off into the sea.
Right, and this is my
And
hypothesis.
ruins off
Hmm.
Japan.
Right, and this is
So
my hypothesis is that I think it's possible that the flood from Noah's Ark uh, just kind of was a trigger in a succession of floods. Uh, we do see multiple regional floods just all across the globe at similar times, because of the Ice Age.
so the inspired word of
Receding
God
in the younger
saying
Dryad
40
period.
days and 40 nights, that's just a euphemism then?
Oh no, I believe that that happened in that region for sure.
But he said it's the whole world, and it would cover all the mountains as well.
Yeah, I think eventually it did. I just don't think it's possible that Noah's flood could happen um, all at once all across the world, but I do think there was flooding across the world, if that makes sense. So that at some point, every region was flooded, and we do find scientific evidence of that at
Um,
about that time because of the Younger Dryad period of the Ice Age, where it had warmed up and it got colder again, and then it warmed up again. You know, you're going to have flooding.
right, which is what.
Okay, because my question to you would be that if you do believe that a global flood is possible, how did animals like penguins, polar bears, bison, wallabies, three-toed sloths make the trip to the Mesopotamia to get on the boat?
Okay.
And how did specialized animals make it back to their localized regions on their different islands?
Probably because they were there already. And name some of the ones you just named for me.
Penguins, polar bears, bison, wallaby, three-toed sloth. And the other thing to think about is that at this time, woolly mammoths were still existent on north of Russia. And how were they housing walruses and sea turtles who can't be in the ocean for a whole year?
Well, clearly they couldn't, and they most likely didn't. But let's say you do imagine some, like, global flood, and
Also, and what would koalas, anteaters, and bats eat? And how did we house the insects? And it would be very difficult to feed specialized animals like that. And also, as soon as they got off the ark, all the predators would eat the prey animals.
are you really asking me, or is this
Yeah, I'm
rhetorical?
asking you. That's all my points, and then I want whatever you know.
Well, if there's a fast global catastrophe, like Noah's flood, happened 40 days, 40 nights, the windows of the heavens opened and the waters from above fell, and the waters from below came bursting up and sloshing everything around and filling the globe up. Don't you think that there would be a tremendous amount of debris that would float, as well as debris that would sink? Broken
Right,
trees,
so you're
broken logs.
thinking, like,
Don't you think that there
land-
would be, and in some regions, that there would be a massive, like,
Uh,
collection of floating debris?
land boats. I know what you're talking about. I've heard of that.
Birds
because
could land there,
that
insects
is
could
how
land on those
certain
things.
animals have migrated periodically when they're already in the general region.
And of
but-
course, you would suspect that that would happen all over the entire world, that there would be these little islands of floating debris all around. That elusive species like the polar bear, as far as Noah's
So
concerned.
it's like in The
could-
Wizard of Oz when she's in the eye of the storm and she sees
No.
like people still doing
No,
this.
no, it's the opposite of the Wizard of Oz.
Okay.
No. I don't know. That's just one. That's just right off, the top of my head. That's one way to account for that.
And how would saltwater animals survive a deluge of fresh water? And how would
Well, there would be a mixture of the two,
Mm-hmm.
and there have been reports up around the North Pole by explorers where sailors that have been stuck in a place or have been like lost in the North Sea. Beyond the pole is a place that was referred to by some Slavic countries that had been exploring, the area around the North Pole, and that they were delighted to find, as their water reserves had run out, that they could scoop up water, ocean water, and it was fresh. And they realized that there were places up there where the seawater was so dense with salt that it actually
It's separated? Okay.
and the fresh melting iceberg water covered the top of the surface, and so you had two strata of heavy seawater, salt, and then fresh water sitting on top.
So you're actually claiming that there's a rapid example of natural selection where animals develop super rapidly to a new pH and salinity level.
No, but I imagine that there were some regions of a
Oh, where
the
if you
tremendous
survived
flood.
and then trickled
Yes.
back down to the ocean.
Where the environment was compatible to some species, some lucky species that found themselves there. And remember, it's a big mixing of ocean water and water from heaven, water below, and ice melting. Because even though I described water vapor from warmed oceans passing over cooler continents, and then the moisture becomes snow, but there was also an increase in temperature because of the geothermic mega event that assisted the flood with all the volcanic activity, and that would probably imply that there was a fast warming up right after, and a lot of that ice being turned to water, not instantly snap of my fingers, but on the historical timeline in a considerably quick amount of time.
Okay.
And did you know that there's millions, literally millions, of nautiloids all over the Grand Canyon as well?
And then on top of Mount Everest as well.
A nautiloid is like a little octopus or squid,
Sure.
and it's in a
Little
cone. It's a
spiral
shell.
shell.
Yeah, a big long one. There's millions of them scattered, and there's other evidences of marine life.
Right, which is what
Deposited.
I think too, is that at some point in history, every part of the earth was flooded. And
There was flood.
generally in the last, 10,000 years because of the Ice Age and all that. But that's just something that I wondered if you might have considered that.
I hadn't really, so that was a good point. What do you think about like the deserts, like the Gobi Desert in China? According, to ancient Chinese cultures, that was like a plush place,
Sure.
fertile
Definitely.
civilization.
Like what
kingdoms
did
were
I
there.
say to you, Ryan?
And
I
now there's
told
remnants
you
buried in the sand, and
that
the same
there's
thing with
been
these.
at least 5 ice ages, and at some points there is no ice on the Earth. So sure, there could have been very verdant areas of the planet for sure.
Well, I was kind of
'Cause
departing
it's
from the
the
flood.
greenhouse effect. What
I'm
people
not saying
are
the flood-
upset about in climate today is that we're exponentially increasing the greenhouse effect. So, but there is a natural greenhouse effect. Anyways, go on.
No, you can elaborate more.
I don't really have anything else to say about it.
Well, the Sahara Desert has the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
Once it was very plush, and
Sure.
there's remains of old ancient civilizations that are buried all throughout the Sahara Desert. And
I didn't know that. That's interesting.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I knew it was more fertile, but I didn't know about the remains, or I've never really looked into any archaeological findings of the Sahara.
and then you got the limestone of the polished limestone of the Great Pyramids being described as glass or mirrors at some point in history, rather than just polished limestone. So I don't know.
A lot of people think that an asteroid hit the planet. I wouldn't 100% discount that.
Well, on a later talk, maybe you could look into this a little bit. Is that there are crazy stories out there about the possibility of nuclear weapon capability actually having been achieved
I don't think.
at least once,
According to your.
but perhaps several times before
right.
in the ancient
But
past.
according to your, what you're adhering to now.
I'm not adhering to nothing. I'm
Exploring
just
now.
throwing that out there.
It would be an electromagnetic
'Cause-
weapon. It wouldn't be a
It would be a
nuclear weapon. I don't
tremendous heat weapon that would destroy all vegetation.
think. Right, and
so that it
electromagnetism
wouldn't.
can generate heat, obviously.
Yeah, okay. But I'm saying that's weird. And then if you talk
Be more
about
like a laser beam.
if you talk about the, that's another super high tech weapon. That if we're gonna go down the road where I'm gonna
We
say
have high-tech
nuclear
weaponry.
weaponry.
We have sound weapons that we can just undo people with.
Yeah.
Oh, there's the hummingbird again.
Hide.
So
The
cute.
chickens will come too.
No, they're in bed.
All I'm saying.
Oh, he's just a darling, precious thing.
Your attention deficit disorders.
It's not.
Just been
If anyone
triggered.
sees a hummingbird at dusk, that's so neat.
All right. Well, anyway,
I feel
I'm
bad.
gonna look into it.
I know he knows the season's ending. The flowers are starting to drop.
Key.
So, well, did you have something else to say about deserts?
Nah.
Okay.
I
You want
much
to talk about the
prefer to think about
seven
desserts. What?
wonders of the ancient world and the Babylonian terraced garden, or I'm sorry, King Solomon's terraced gardens?
What about it? Obviously, you know something.
No, you were talking about verdant, lush places.
Well, I was gonna
that
just
are-
quick throw in the whole reference to these flying machines,
Vimanas.
the Vimanas,
Okay.
and the sky
Which run on
battles.
electromagnetics, if you listen to Stan Deo.
Right.
Hmm.
All right. You know what? I'm going to go on a limb here. What I think is that after Tesla reverse engineered the same technology used, electromagnetic technology used by the ancient Indians from India to make their flying Vimanas, in which they were reported to have had great sky battles, and they had weapons that could incinerate entire cities, that the United States government stepped in and said, because right after Tesla died, government officials went into his hotel room and confiscated all of his material.
Yeah, that is pretty suspect.
And I think that they've been leading us down this Thomas Edison way of thinking about technology, and this whole time, and I think I've said this in another video, that they've been trying to explore and develop these old technologies and creating a drastic, not just a military advantage, but a military paradigm shift advantage of weapons. And I think that, like I said before, that this whole alien disclosure thing that's starting to bleed into social media gradually is just a way for them to
Prepare you for them unleashing the technology they've been working on.
Yeah, and for some reason, it might even be possible that they would want us to think that it was an entire alien technology rather than a one that's been known for all ages and has just been rediscovered once again, all based on electromagnetics.
Wasn't it H.G. Wells that wrote the story about the alien invasion?
War of the Worlds?
Yeah, but they played it on the radio and everyone thought it was real.
Orson Welles was the radio guy.
Was he? I couldn't
Yeah.
remember if it was H.G.
I know,
Wells that
two
wrote
Wells
it.
dudes.
No, or if it was Orson Welles that read it, or if it was both.
I've confused them all the
I
time.
believe it
too.
was H.G. Wells that wrote it. But anyway,
He did the
if we can believe predictive programming, like how we saw on The Simpsons, they show
that's
9,
smoker's cough, not COVID.
and
you said it.
then the two towers as the 11. So if
What was the 9?
they had like a $9 bill or something.
Oh,
like
yeah,
that,
yeah,
or
yeah,
something
yeah.
cost $9.
It was like a magazine, and it was
And then they had 2 towers next to it.
yeah.
So if we can trust predictive programming, then maybe that there was something to that. We all know people like Aldous Huxley and George Orwell and the others were kind of CIA operatives, somewhat in the way that the Beatles were created by like places, think tanks like the Brookings Institute.
Tavistock.
Right.
Man, it's just a
So
spider web of deceit.
I could imagine them, I don't know, maybe coming out with something, but more on the entertainment spectrum rather than in an official government capacity. But I guess we'll see.
So there's so much fun things to talk about. We're gonna have to stick with some issues and kind of vet them out a little bit more, a little bit better in the future. Okay, 20 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I'm good. You good?
Well, I mean, I guess there's more to say, but
Oh, then say it.
no, sometimes I just lose my train of thought because I'm trying to kind of listen to what you're saying too, but
Attention
then,
deficit disorder.
well, you changed the subject
I did.
that's going on in my brain.
I'm sorry.
Yeah.
I love you though.